Howdy, howdy. It is another Friday night. We are not just any Friday night, it's Good Friday. For those that
Good
observe
Friday.
that holiday. So there you go. It's not only a Good
Today is
Friday,
a Good Friday.
it's
to
the
talk
best
about
Celebrated on many
Friday.
by many Earth religions.
No, we get a new episode of Picard from our savior Alex Kurtzman, right? Like no, it's already like a bunch of people like stopped watching when I said that. No. It's gonna be an exciting episode to talk about. We're episode 8. So this is everything that's not part of the 2-part finale has now been like laid bare on the table, right? You know, the stage is set, right? That's like the expression.
Father,
So,
I'm just going to point out, arguably there is a resurrection on this episode with Data. Just saying.
yeah. So it was the return of Data instead of the return of Christ. But yeah, I think we should go ahead and get started on this show that will get us all sent to hell. But it's gonna be a fun trip, right? It's gonna be a fun trip.
Indeed.
Oh, I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
This is Starfleet So Hail.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 237th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek old and new. Tonight, we are talking about Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 8, Surrender, written by Matt Okumura and directed by Deborah Kampmeier. Before we get into this episode discussion, though, I do want to give a huge thank you and a show of appreciation to our patrons. That is our very own Starfleet Sohel here, but also Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchy, Joanne Robertson, John Dog, Geek Filter, Earl Grey Trekkie, Quarks Barb, Ingenium, Stephanie Durantes, and our anonymous supporters. Thank each and every one of you so very, very much. For anyone who doesn't know, we do a monthly watch party with our patrons. So we're gonna do one of those coming up Saturday next weekend. If you're watching this live on Friday, it'll be next weekend. But if you're listening to this, later sometime after Easter, it'll be on Saturday, April 15th. We need to figure out what we're watching. Like I don't know, like what sounds good to y'all in the watch party? We just got like the return of lore, I guess. So y'all want to watch a lore episode? Dave just finally hit Message in a Bottle on Voyager. That's an episode I think would be tons of fun for a watch party.
Although I think the next episode where they get the letters is better.
It is, but it's not as fun.
That's true. We can think about that. Andy Dick has, I think, been revealed as a very bad person in real life, like a predatory person, and so there is that. But I also I'd be down for a lore episode. I have not revisited those in some time.
This is an episode that Dave and I are not huge fans of, but it's an important episode, and I know some people really like it. But since we are approaching the grand finale of the TNG crew, should we do like Encounter at Farpoint and revisit where it all began?
Yeah, I'd be super
interesting.
down.
Is that a 2-hour or 2-part thing? Or
yeah, it is. So it'll take like an hour and a half to watch it. Probably like an hour and 45 minutes. We'll be like, oh well, let's wait for a few more minutes, see if anyone shows up late, type of thing. But I mean, do y'all want to commit to
Zorn or whatever his name?
Groppler Zorn. That guy voiced Raziel in the Soul Calibur, or not Soul Reaver games on PlayStation 1.
Oh, yeah, he had such a
Legacy of Kain games. The 5 people on the internet that watch or listen to our show and give a shit about the Legacy of Kain games on PlayStation 1 from like 25 years ago. They're like
Hey, that
really
was a good
excited to
game.
hear that. Yeah.
That was like Vampire Zelda.
It was good. Yeah, it was actually kind of groundbreaking in a lot of ways, but we're not here to talk about that shit.
No.
So yeah, well,
I see a call for Tuvix. I'm just pointing it out. There's an episode that never gets anybody riled up, and it's just
I'm always down
beloved,
to talk about.
beloved by everyone.
Jill 47 is saying no to lore, no to Farpoint.
Wow,
Okay,
damn.
I don't know. How about I guess I don't know. Well, I wanted to get that figured out tonight.
Part 1 and 2.
Perhaps, like Jill bounces some suggestions.
Jill,
you're in the mix there. Please suggest some stuff.
Let's do it. Let's keep it on TNG.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, it's their time to shine.
Yeah, it's their time to. Well, no, probably no more TNG after this the rest of the year because we've been watching a lot of TNG and with the patrons. But
Data's Day is a good suggestion. Jill just suggested Data's
Day.
I like that. I like that suggestion.
Good.
Is that the one that's told from his perspective, like a journal kind of thing?
Yeah, we'll see.
Right.
If we remember,
I remember that being a really good episode.
If we remember at the end of the show, we'll circle. We might forget, after we talk about all the exciting events in this episode, or
there's a lot
underwhelming events if you don't like them. I don't know where people are going to land on this one, but I have heard a lot of mixed things. We'll try to circle back to this at the end of the show tonight and see what we decide. So, sound off suggestions in the comments. We'll see if there's a popular one. As for this episode of Picard, we're talking about surrender. I'm going to quickly recap it for everyone by reading the synopsis, then I'll kind of expand on that with spoilers. The official synopsis reads, Vatic forces Picard to make an impossible choice, deliver what he can never give, or watch his crew perish. Their only salvation lies in the mind of an old friend and an old foe. Of course, that turns out to be Data and Lore, who I guess they kind of struggle for control of the android body they were both shoved into. And Data wins by surrendering all of his memories to Lore, thus transforming Lore into who Data is. And he's able to help the crew defeat Vatic, reclaim the Titan, and Riker and Troi and Worf and Raffi join them, and everyone's together on the ship. And now, even though they teased it last week, this episode again ends with the tease of, now we can maybe, hopefully, possibly next week learn the secrets of Jack Crusher.
Come on, we figured it out. We know it. I know it.
I think I think our big theory, is probably going to be true, but I don't know. I could be wrong. We'll find out.
I think it's at least that's like the main possibility. There may be some more wrinkles, but we're not trying to avoid talking about it, are we?
No, like we can. I mean, we're thinking
it's speculation
Borg, right?
Anyway.
We're all thinking Borg. I've heard some really cool stuff. I think I've heard some good ideas, some interesting ideas. Like Pa Wraiths would be cool. I've heard Red Jack from Wolf in the Fold. I mean, hey, Jack the Ripper and Jack Crusher. I've heard a bunch of things. But yeah, the only thing to me that would make sense for the final mission of Jean-Luc Picard would be the Borg.
Yep. It's a little weird because they did confront the Borg last season, but it was not quite... It wasn't sort of the personal thing it will be for Picard in this one.
Also, last season, I think the way that I think that we've been having Borg ideas, Borg stuff has kind of been a part of Picard. Like, there was the Reclamation project in season 1 and a lot of Borg outlying stuff, like a lot of post Voyager Borg updates or whatever. Then season 2, we had like direct contact with the alternate universe, the Confederation Borg Queen, plus this new paradigm with Borg Jurati. So yeah, I think it makes sense that season 3 is going to kind of like bring us to a head with this Borg story.
Yeah, you could argue it's been the one constant in every season of Picard is some interaction with Borg stuff. That's since that was kind of one of his greatest failures. Not that he particularly failed, but sort of his greatest losses, I guess.
But yeah, it
So
makes sense. He would carry that baggage, that like
Right.
those scars never went away. Like that's
They made a whole movie about how he
Yeah.
couldn't deal with it.
yeah, it's kind of on brand for Picard. So I think it would be appropriate. But it's all about the execution, right? So we'll have to see what happens in these last two episodes. But let's start with you, Starfleet Sohel. You've been a huge fan of Picard for a long time. We're just this, and then the two remaining episodes that will make up the finale. So we're about done. This might be for all I know, this is the last time that I'll have you on the show talking about your favorite of the current Star Trek shows. So it's an honor that you're here. This famous Star Trek Picard fan, Starfleet Sohel. You've been just enthused for the show without unceasing enthusiasm for years at this point. So now that we're right up against the big finale of all of it, what did you think about this episode? Just your broad impressions before we get into the specifics.
Thank you for that nice little observation of my love of Picard.
All that he put a ton of pressure on you, and he's like, "All right, speech."
Speech. Now, what do you think of this episode? No, this is definitely my favorite episode of this season. This is my favorite episode of the series for sure, and I think I've watched it like a bunch of times now already, and I think it's going to be one of the episodes that I'll love, like just kind of going back and watching. And in particular, for me in particular, it's like the return of Data, because like in Nemesis, of course, we get his death, and a lot of people were satisfied with that. They're like, all right, Data's dead. Then we get this like, which I wasn't satisfied with. Then we get this like really good death for Data, in my opinion, in season 1 of Picard. Like, I thought that was like actually pretty awesome. Like I think we talked about it at length. I think we might have been on the same page about just like how it was like a really good ending to a story. So I was like suspicious that this is going to happen. I was kind of hoping for a new being, like completely, like that was like a, that would identify themselves differently and stuff like that. But that being said, when I was watching this episode and the way it all came together, and just like the genius of that scene inside of his neural net with Lore, and like, I think I jokingly put on your post on Twitter, Father, that darn cat was like, that just like got like, that was it. Like, it was like hook, line, and sinker. Starfleet So it was just like, it was like written for me. It was just such a touching and like beautiful moment. But then on top of that, we get like an incredible moment with Riker and Troi. We get this like really cool, defeating the villain, the sub villain, the sub boss, I guess you could say.
A satisfying end to the mini boss.
A satisfying end to the mini boss, and like then we just get like the quote unquote, I know it's a taboo word, reunion. So to me, this episode just like hit on all.
Sir Patrick Stewart is pissed at you right now.
I know he's so mad.
He is driving to your house to beat the shit out of you.
I'm not even aware of this. Did they decide that was kind of a taboo term for some reason?
Patrick Stewart, he got mad when people were calling it a TNG reunion.
What was the particular issue with that? Is that just like, it's a story, not a reunion episode? Like, did he think it was like,
I think
it was reductive, maybe, or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
Sorry to sidetrack. I hadn't heard it.
No, but that all that aside, but the reunion finally occurs. They're all together, and I was very satisfied. There's a lot of things that I learned kind of in talking about this episode with folks about, and we'll go into that in the deeper discussion. But just for me personally, super thrilled with how it's going. I think that it's also kind of cool that we get this like these 8 episodes, which is kind of like these days like your standard season of TV. So we get these 8 episodes, a nice little complete 8 episode package, and now we're gonna get this 2-parter that's kind of like going, all right, we had this season, now we're gonna go into this movie. So I'm super amped and excited about it. And yeah, episode 8, by far my favorite of the series, Picard.
They should show it at movie theaters. The 9
I
and 10.
agree. Some folks are apparently renting out a theater.
We could do that. Dave, we
Yeah,
could do
yeah.
that. I
You
mean, like,
guys could do that.
I don't think we want to bad enough. I mean, nothing against doing that. Just like it's neither of us would probably have like the free time or money to like.
I feel like it's a little
organize that.
pricey. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love the idea.
During the pandemic, I had a great opportunity and took advantage of it to watch Star Trek 6 in a movie theater, and it was just because they had like really great deals. We were able to rent the theater for what's relatively cheap. But now the prices are back up to normal, and so I don't think I can afford to do that.
I did that 2 years ago with some other friends of mine. We rented a theater for my almost exactly 2 years. This is my birthday Monday.
yeah.
Recording. But, yeah, we did that in 2021 with.
I think I did 3 rented movie theaters during the course of the pandemic.
Yeah, I did it, and then like 2 of our other friends did it like after I did. But
It was cool to have that option, and it kept theaters going. I think Drama Dork Rachel says she'd be in if you guys did it. So you got another person in.
Well, we'll see. For me though, for like my opening statement on this episode, I don't have a ton to say. This is kind of like that awkward spot where they're just kind of setting the stage for the finale, and so this is normally like the point where like in a Star Trek season where like I kind of get nervous, like, oh, are they gonna like stick the landing with with Discovery or Picard? So just some quick thoughts. I thought Vatic was a lot of fun. I'm glad that she's not the main focus of the episode. She's not like Khan. She's not like the driving force of the story. She's more like Krug in Star Trek 3, just like an obstacle who's there, while they're trying to do this stuff on the Genesis planet. I guess she's like a little bit more involved than
she's a pretty big obstacle, if nothing else.
Maybe she is like Chang, actually, like her father's character, in a way.
Well, Amanda Plummer's father, not Vadic's father.
No, I know. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I think that she was good. It's just like, you want like a fun, hateable, nasty villain. I understand, she's too hammy for some people, but yeah, I was satisfied with the stuff they did with her and glad that, okay, she was cool for what they needed her to be, and she's gone now. So got what I wanted with that. I liked finally getting some Riker and Troi screen time together. That was another highlight for me. I thought it was like so funny that like, and just cool. I like their relationship, how just when she makes like that joke about like, sleeping with the changelings, like Riker is cool with it. Like, he doesn't care. Like, she could have like banged the whole Great Link and like he wouldn't care. He's like, you do you, Deanna. Like, I know that you love me. Yeah.
Riker has real confidence. He doesn't have that fake confidence.
There's some form of non-monogamy. They take the Horgon with them when they go to Little Ryza. That's canonical. And then he does get jealous when her ex-boyfriend Worf shows up and starts reading poetry. And he's like, damn, like this guy is a Klingon. He's twice the man I am. I don't know if I can compete with this. But yeah, I guess y'all didn't like that joke, but
I did. I liked it.
The data resurrection thing, it bothers me. I wish that they didn't bring Data back. I think it does undercut some of the stuff in season 1. I understand how satisfying it is to see all 7 of them at the table, and I'm able to forgive it. They do like enough little, like Picard, like, I hope this doesn't dishonor, your memory or disrespect that other version of you and all that stuff. And they made Data different enough. He's not the same Data. I guess they're all, evolved characters. They've all changed, but he's different enough that it's like, I can kind of get behind it, but it just would have been more interesting to me if they just like let Data stay dead and, had Lore forced to team up with them or something like that. But probably better to do this and invent yet another Soong or something. So I will forgive that, but I still kind of take off some points for it. And it was I can't deny though it was still like a very touching moment to see all 7 of them sitting around a conference table for the first time in 21 years. It took me back to the last time I saw that. I guess it would have been in Star Trek Nemesis when they get their orders from Janeway to go to Romulus, and they're sitting around the conference room and they're like like having this briefing about who's the Shinzon guys, the new Praetor, and what. And yeah, it was 21 years later, I'm seeing them sitting around the conference table again. So, I can't deny like that fan service. It worked on me. I gotta admit, yeah, that was cool
You
thing.
sound
to see.
slightly resentful of it, Fathery.
Well,
You're like, yeah, you got me, I guess.
I mean, I think it's not a great story to like resurrect Data there, but I understand like yeah, sometimes sometimes the fan service is worth it.
It's nice that they did address it with Jean-Luc asking directly, like, last time I was with you, you asked me to deactivate you or whatever. And
Very,
so, yeah,
very glad they did that. I felt like
Yeah.
that's the Picard I want, the thoughtful Picard.
Dave, what about you? What was your broad thoughts on this episode?
Fathery, before we do that, do we want to quick mention there was a whatever you call it, a super tweet, super quote?
Oh yeah, super
Oh,
chat.
super chat.
Super
Thank
chat,
you so
thank you.
much, Snoopy McQueen. Yes, that was a generous super chat of $5. And Snoopy says, Picard season 3, episode 8 was awesome. Was one of the best Trek episodes of all time. Sorry I didn't get to that sooner. So he's in the same boat as you. So hell, he thought there was 2 episodes ago, episode 6. That was my favorite of all Picard so far. The bounty when we first meet Geordi.
You
Even though I
really
hated
like
the Section 31 stuff in that episode.
Yeah.
It's my Nepenthe. But speaking of that, Dave, what about your take on Surrender?
This is one of those episodes where I feel like I'm kind of all in. I'm pretty close to Sohail. It was we talked about a little, especially earlier on in this season, how there was a lot of Star Trek 2 references early on. Not just Trek 2, but there from Picard inspecting the ship to any of other visual homages. And one of my favorite scenes in all of Trek, as far as like kind of seeing the good guys get their win, even though it's kind of a slightly Pyrrhic win, is when Kirk gets responds to Khan after that first attack. His understated "Here it comes," and the panic on Khan's face when the shields drop, and then just seeing them blasting some really hard hitting shots on the Reliant. I felt like this was, the whole episode felt like it was like that scene expanded into like a whole episode. It was like the crew taking things back, getting their agency, getting the band back together. Vatic got wrecked. A lot of people got their moments. And for me, it was after 7 episodes, I guess. I felt like this was a fair time to go all out with a crowd pleaser. There were so many lines that I thought were great. I jotted down a lot of them. And I was, I think I kind of agree with you. It's like, but because that this is not like an ingenious story element or anything like that, but because these have all functioned, Picard has always kind of functioned a little bit more like the movies as kind of events. I think I'm more okay with the crowd pleaser stuff, and so I was really enjoying this. I was in it the whole time, pretty much liking all the turns in it, and hearing that music go from what had been like 7 episodes of very menacing music to sort of starting to tip over into like a pretty serious heroic themes, and eventually into the famous Goldsmith theme. I forget what else was in there. Some stuff from First Contact and maybe Nemesis.
Well, those are all Goldsmith, so
Yep.
Lots of Goldsmith, yeah.
Yeah, it's it blurs together after a while.
Right. There's a slightly melancholy theme that they played that I was like, I think that might have been a Nemesis, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had laughs and I had like tears in this one, so I was just completely into it. It was the crowd pleaser episode that hit me at almost every point.
That's interesting. The show has made me tear up previously, like especially like the Data Geordi scene that we got last week. Yeah, nothing in this episode got like that level of reaction out of me.
I'll mention there's a few points, several points I kind of felt like that in this one, but weirdly one of the ones was that when Data was finally, when it was revealed, what we probably guessed, but I still found very satisfying, when he completely sort of subsumes Lore back into himself, but he embraces him when he does it. He does. It's kind of like he's not really doing it with malice, and that sort of true. It felt so true to Data's spirit. I thought that I was very touched by it.
Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get into the episode breakdown.
Yep.
We kind of have 3 different stories to talk about. We have, Vatic in command of the the Titan and executing people, and then we have the Worf, Raffi, Riker, Troi stuff on the Shrike, and then we have the Data lore stuff. So let's just go through them in that order. We'll start with how the episode opens with Vatic doing something that I thought was kind of a clever way to show how really like nasty and disrespectful she is to our heroes and to Starfleet and all the values that we respect. But she's smoking on the bridge of a Starfleet ship in the captain's chair. Just Gene Roddenberry was so vocal about like no smoking in Star Trek. So it's like yeah, this is what she thinks of Gene Roddenberry.
She was like
vision of the future,
blowing smoke in his face.
Yeah, basically, yeah. This is what she thinks of Gene's vision. Everyone likes using that buzzword these days. But yeah, he's spinning in his grave. Knowing that's on screen, but yeah, she's sending her minions all over the ship to just murder people. It's kind of scary. It's kind of over the top, but I mean, like they give you enough serious moments. When they show like people's reactions, like people are hiding in the corridors or like they're crying on the bridge and stuff. It's like, damn, like this is almost too real. So I bought into it.
She had a creepy way of talking about it, and I think it sort of probably fits in with some broader thematic about how like there's a lot of like about like bodies in this and DNA and stuff like that. And so when she says like first we'll take their eyes, yeah, and I was like, oh, that's a good villain line. And then she's like, what is she then? We'll take their ears and all of that stuff. She was she was in full villain mode, yeah, for sure.
And it's all very, psychological stuff. It's like when that changeling turned from Tuvok to Corpse Riker last week, just to fuck with Picard. She's doing the same thing here, and she kind of has like the luxury of like, yeah, I'm just gonna be as big of an asshole as possible and force Jack. I'm gonna force him to come here to me. And it makes it easy to empathize with Jack and his, how do you resist that? And he's trying stuff with his weird mind powers that we still don't know much about, but I guess he gets like that poor security officer killed when he like morphs into him. Like, oh, I'm just gonna walk down the hallway and see what's going on, and then that dude gets like shot by one of the bird nest
seemed
minions.
Like.
Yeah, is this like a warg? He's warging, right? Like,
oh yeah, but if you've read A Song of Ice and Fire, then you know what we're talking about. Or I guess they get into that in the show too. So it's in Game of Thrones. Yeah, not to the extent. It's a bigger deal in the books, but.
Valerie, for old comic readers like me, it's like what Jericho from the Teen Titans does.
Exactly, yeah. Well, he's that's in the TV show now, so yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
I watched Titans on HBO Max.
I didn't know if they did that, but yes,
I think they've gotten to Jericho. I haven't seen a ton of that show, but I think they've covered that character. That was in season 2. Yeah, they did that in season 2.
Oh yeah. I thought they showed Jack to be kind of really rising to kind of the really pretty heroic state when he says he's like, I've got to try. He says it with that voice that's like, there is no choice here,
Yeah. Ed Speleers sold me on like the guilt. He's like, I got to do something. Like, I can't just stay here and listen to her, kill people.
This was one of his best performances too. Just like the way,
I when he was like, for Ed Speleers. He's always having to play like distressed and panicked and worried and terrified.
I think that's great for an actor though. Like I'm sure he would like a friendly conversation in there somewhere too, but. When he's talking to Troi at the end, and he's got like his eyes are very clearly tearing up.
I feel sorry for him. That's like I want to help him or something. But yeah, that's great acting. If I'm getting that emotional about it, just watching the dude, like he's clearly doing his job. What are we gonna call his power? I'm gonna try to start a thing. Like I think it should be called mind jacking.
I'm gonna call it Borg Wi-Fi.
Borg Wi-Fi.
But they had a good plan. They're gonna mind Jack into the security officer and have him enter Picard's it's almost like one of those like typical Star Trek writers thing, like how do our heroes get out of the situation? Oh, they have like some cool like secret Starfleet protocol, it's like the prefix code from Wrath of Khan all over again.
Yeah,
but I love that like it didn't work. Like Vatic caught them, and that what do y'all think of like that scene, like the tension when she's like going back and forth between choosing a hostage to execute?
Incredible tension, incredible stakes. I remember the first time I was watching it, I was like really, really into it and nervous and like scared, and
yeah, it was
stressful. It was stressful, but also very one thing that Amanda Plummer brings to this role that's really neat is she can pull off creepy, but with like real depth. You know what I mean? Like there's times where you someone in a Twitter space was saying, and I really kind of tuned into this and liked this idea when I was rewatching it just recently, is that in a really demented way, it's interesting that she doesn't kill who we haven't talked about who she's killed, but it's interesting that she doesn't kill
father?
Mura, the father, and also the one that's crying and like really doesn't want to die.
Lieutenant Matthew Mura, named after Matt Murra, a guy who used to do the After Trek show. Matt Murra, right?
Oh, is that
Mara,
who they named him? Oh, that's cool.
I mean, that's too similar. Like, I don't know many Bajorans named Matthew. Like, that had to be intentional, right?
But she does also exude cruelty. Like, she wants them to know she's considering killing somebody who's got a son.
Right.
It definitely evokes Krug's scene in Star Trek 3,
right.
But it's like an extended version of that. And Krug was a little bit more methodical about it, and she's kind of savoring the tension.
Now that she's, I know we're going to talk about her further, and you have more of this. This got me because I love Tavine. She was my favorite of the bridge.
I know
crew.
of these three that we see a lot of on the bridge with Esmar, the communication officer, and Matthew Murra, the security officer, and then Tavine, the science officer. The one who I liked the most was Tavine. Like, she's the one, like, if they do a sequel show to Picard, like, she's the one, like, I would want to come back. I was like, oh yeah, she's like, I didn't really get the chance to know her, but, she's had, like, some interesting line deliveries, visually interesting for a Vulcan. Cool, let's keep her around. Nope, no, she's disintegrated. She's dust.
Yeah, it's really sad. Someone said, I hope her Katra is stored somewhere, but that can't happen for every
no,
Vulcan.
they lost her Katra. She's gone. Damn Vatic.
But,
what a pointless end to this person. It's kind of the same perspective that Jack and Picard and all of those characters, the non-Titan crew people. It's like they didn't really know her. They only observed what we observed. I was like, oh yeah, like they worked with her for a little bit. They've been hanging out with her for a few episodes. She seems like a good Starfleet officer, good science officer. And then bam, she's gone. It's just like, wow, that's, and like you see like all of her friends and colleagues, they're the ones like crying about it and stuff. It's just like, we get kind of like that same experience witnessing it. The point of view characters have.
And then
if I may sidebar,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was gonna say, if I may sidebar, just okay.
Yeah, go ahead. After you, Sohail.
Okay, thank you. Just real quick on Tavine, the actor Stephanie Kaczynski. I think it's Kaczynski. We met her. Aaron and I met her, and she held up one of these like Picard masks for us, and like gave us an LLAP, and was just so friendly. And so like, I remember just being like, "Oh, this is great! Like, we're gonna get a Vulcan on the bridge and everything." So yeah,
so you've had a chance to meet the.
Yeah,
I saw
that video clip of Sohail like yelling at her, like, "Give us a LLAP," and then she does like the Vulcan hand jive.
Nice,
very cool. She was very cool. They were all cool. We got to meet the actor who plays Esmer and also Mura. Mira.
Aaron's correcting us from the audience. He's from the live chat. He's saying that Mira is the real dude. And he also had a really funny suggestion a second ago of we should refer to Ed Speleers as ESP Peleers because he has the ESP abilities. So I like that.
That's pretty good.
I like that too.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the stuff going on with Riker and Troi on the Shrike. And we got a new Betazoid word with Yentura, a baby of immense size. So basically, like, if you want to call someone a big baby, you can call them Yentura, I guess.
That seems like that could be handy.
That's some handy Star Trek trivia to have, right?
Keep that in mind next time somebody's like, Discovery's not canon.
I already used it in a tweet today.
You called someone a Yantara?
I just said, don't let the Yantaru fans change spoil your enjoyment of Star Trek. The big baby fans.
In my opening statement, I kind of gushed on the scene, and I possibly the highlight of the episode for me. There is some other stuff I really liked too, but what did y'all think of the scene with Riker and Troi actually getting them, having like actual conversations in person, not just like over a computer screen?
I think I was for a little while I was thinking, I don't know, as smart broadly and schemy as Vatic seems, I was a little surprised she would let them be together, talk together, commiserate. I figured she'd probably want, if nothing else, the psychological isolation that she could get out of that, out of having them separated. Uh, that said, super good scene. They got to talk, and we got to find out we got to find out what has been eating at Riker all this time. Why did he leave home? And the answer, if seemed to be that he was, that what was their sons who died? Thaddeus.
Yeah.
Thaddeus.
Yeah, that he was so broken by that she tried to use her Betazoid powers to kind of help him through it, to dim it, and he ended up. She had best of intentions, but he ended up resentful because it was the last connection he had to their kid, and I really liked that. I thought that was a good explanation of what otherwise, when I first heard it, I was like, please don't tell me that one of the best couples in all of Star Trek, maybe the best couple, just is having a spat and had a breakup right now. I'm like, I don't like that. This was a pretty good follow through on it, and aside from Troi is clearly going to have stuff to do next episode. She had stuff to do this episode, but it was great to see Marina Sirtis get to really have a long scene.
Yeah, and they're saving, I guess, like her stuff for these last 3 episodes, which kind of makes sense. Yeah, her powers could figure out Jack, like, yeah, it makes sense, like, why you would want her saved for the last. And we've talked about before on the show Marina's situation of, all these actors. It looks like Terry Matalas in the show, they were very good with, like, working with the actors, give them whatever they needed to come back and do the show. And that was, I guess what Marina wanted was, yeah, she didn't want like a huge role. She wanted to have a small but important role, it would seem.
Well, that's so. Do we know that? Is that something she said?
That's something that Terry Matalas was saying on Twitter in the last few days. But yeah, it's something we suspected with her. I mean, like her husband passed away, and then she moved to London, and like I get like, yeah, you're probably not wanting to like come over here and do like a ton of work. So
I think that was one of the takeaways I had, just like kind of like being part of, and also myself experiencing this, is like, this has been such a big expectation, like such a big like thing, like, for especially folks that really enjoy that era of Star Trek, like especially the TNG crew, and we've been all like wanting them to get some kind of like some of us have been wanting to get this like kind of resolution and stuff, and for some of us, there's a character we love more than another. Like some people love Geordi more than other characters. Some people really love
some people really love Dr. Crusher.
Yeah, like, there's
always been a bland character to me, but I know there are people out there that like she's like their favorite Star Trek character.
But that's part of it, is that a lot of people were hoping that like this season would like give their favorite character those moments that that character never got, like and in a way we're getting that to an extent. Like look at Geordi. I think Geordi's one of the best ones, like considering like with his daughters, and like like the whole thing of like that he actually has a positive relationship, and things like that, like where he struggled with women before. So I think that's at play here a lot. But I think that like when you kind of like breathe for a moment and look at what we're actually getting, it's actually way more than we could have ever expected. Like what everyone was hoping for was like another film, and that would have been like 2 hours. We got like 8 hours of like different moments, like and I think this is the most fleshed out these characters have been since TNG, where they were not really allowed to change much. They didn't like grow in the way that they've grown since the films here. So
yeah, like taking a break, taking a couple of decades off between Nemesis and Picard, it allowed them to. I mean, you kind of have to do it. You can't just have people show up 20 years later and it's like, oh yeah, it's like they were just like frozen in stasis for 2 decades. They of course they would be like a different place in their lives. So
they at least got some, like they would sometimes get an episode where they get a little spotlight. Some of those ones like Troi and Crusher got the least, but they would sometimes still get an episode. But yeah, the movies all felt like kind of wasted potential. So it's been pretty amazing to have as much time as we have with them in Picard, where they actually get scenes that breathe. Not just like one good little scene, not a scene where they get to shoot down a bad guy and be a badass for one scene, but like a lot of scenes.
And the Troi Rikers in particular, and I love this scene so much. It just like watching it, I was just like, my heart was like feeling so like like my heart was, what's the word, like joy. I was just feeling joy at this scene because the Troi Rikers have, we got them in Nepenthe. We've had them on lower decks. Like they're kind of like two characters that we've had a lot more of, but like different little tidbits of their lives, and they have this big tragedy in their lives and stuff like that. So I saw a little bit of like controversy over the Nepenthe reference here, where they were just both kind of like, we're over Nepenthe and we want to like move on. But I actually love it because it shows me that they're like reconnecting to each other. Like, this is not on screen, but Terry Mattel said Kestra's over at the Academy. So like really the
She's
reason
at
that
Starfleet Academy?
she's at Starfleet Academy, yeah.
No. I was about to say,
Uh,
like, is she going to be in that new show? But no, that's in the 32nd century.
That's
So
the
that doesn't
32nd
work.
century. Yeah, exactly. But she might, who knows, if Legacy happens, we might see her and Elnor back.
I don't
whatever,
think Star Trek Legacy is going to happen. I don't think that we're going to get like the Terry Matalas show that he's trying to pitch. But I do think that they'll do something in the 25th century. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we haven't
if
seen
we
the
get more
last
Kestra.
of Kestra.
Yeah, and
I
we
like just real quick. Jill said in the comments, I think putting them in the cell to bond is smart of Vatic. That makes tearing one of them out of the cell far more painful.
Oh yeah, that's
and I was
great.
like, oh, that's a good take on it.
Yeah, that is how she was like
yeah.
That's how she was coercing them. Was like she was torturing Troi off screen to get Riker to give up the code. So we
I am
learned
glad that was largely off screen. So thanks for that, Star Trek. I appreciate it.
To me, they're like confronting their grief finally together instead of like, and it makes sense when you go back and look at Nepenthe. I did actually go back and watch it because I was like, I want to see if there's a, if there's like a read there. And yeah, and and just the very name Nepenthe, meaning forgetting your pains and sorrows and things
that's
like
basically
that.
what
Like
Troi was trying to do to Riker.
Yeah. And so you kind of see Riker's got this like, you could, after this, you can kind of like read some extra things into that performance. It's a wonderful thing about Star Trek.
It makes a lot of sense. Like I thought there was a bit of like a contradiction with the show when Riker was saying like, yeah, I was just like so miserable at home, and then I got out here in space to escape that. And I was like, you didn't really seem that miserable in Nepenthe. Maybe you just got like excited when you saw like an old friend show up, but like I didn't really see that misery. And now it's like, oh, he was miserable, but Troi was suppressing it. And that must have been how he figured it out. Because then, like, when he goes to help Picard at the end of season 1, when he shows up with the
that's a great point. Yeah.
Then he was like, why do I feel all this grief? All of it is like, oh, it was Deanna. She did
turned off. Me.
Yeah. And then he's like, so then like he goes home and he's like, that wasn't cool. Stop doing that. And then Deanna's like, oh, well, now you're miserable all the time and you're making me and Kestra miserable all the. He's like, well, fine, I'll just leave again. And so, okay, that's what happened. And it actually all makes sense.
That's pretty sensible cascade of events.
Yeah.
It was a small thing, but I liked also that Troi kind of overtly said she's like, basically, I'm a city girl. I need to get back around people.
Yeah, no, if you're an empath, if you enjoy, feeling other people's feelings and stuff, yeah, of course you'd be lonely living out in a rural setting.
It seemed more of like a Riker thing, but they both seemed happy enough in it that I was like, yeah, sure, I could buy that.
They seemed happy enough, but it was because like Troi was like feeding Riker telepathic Xanax, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a retcon that I think works
very much so.
Yeah.
He seems to be really good at this. I should say, all of the whole Picard team seems to be really good at this. I'm enjoying, like, I don't mind getting answers to questions or like expanding on things like in this way. I love this. This is the kind of thing I love, where it's like, connected to something and you're putting your own spin on it, but still in a way like honoring and expanding the idea that was presented in the first one, in the first instance or whatever. So yeah, there's been a lot of like really nice references to season 1, and I'm very pleased also, again, as a person who enjoyed season 1 and season 2. I think it's great to have these connections.
Yeah, they didn't throw that out the window or out the airlock, I should say.
Yeah.
There was a line that among the many lines that I liked in this episode, like I said, where Troi says, "I forgot one thing that all counselors should remember: you can't skip to the end of healing." Yeah, I was like, that's a great, really neat little line. It really encapsulates what's happened.
I don't know what a retro prairie hipster is, and that line, I think I might have even laughed at it just because it sounds so weird and
I
funny.
might
But
be a
that's
retro prairie hipster, by the way.
well,
Just
I don't know what the hell
that's
that
like
is, so I guess I
that's
might
like
be
cottage core people in the
yeah,
present.
cottage core. I like that cottage core. It's
I
true.
wish that line wasn't in there because it sounds, like a bit too like 21st century, and
But
that's something they've done a lot more of in like the modern era of Star Trek. The
they
shows that are
have.
currently in production, they
I
definitely tried.
agree.
They get like a little too contemporary with the lingo.
Yeah, but like there is always, it helps to at least always have some foot in our time. By nature they always have some element of whatever era
Yeah,
the show is being filmed in.
I softened a little bit. Like it used to bother me on Voyager when one time Chakotay said "What's up," and in the same episode, Tom Paris makes some like dumb joke, and then Harry Kim goes "lame," and I was like, "Oh my god, they're killing me!" Like I've softened on that like a little bit, but
I don't know about anyone else, but I think these guys have an excuse because they hung out with Zephram Cochrane for a while, and it must have
for
rubbed off
one
on
day, for like they arrived on April 4th and they left on April 5th. Like it was 24 hours.
I don't know, Father. I'm not sure that retro and hipster. You could still have those words in the 25th century. That's not that crazy.
Prairie hipster though. It's a prairie.
Was it when Worf shows up and is like a big badass and get our cool like Goldsmith Klingon theme and he like mows that guy down? That was such a cool heroic entrance. He stabbed the guy with Kurleth and then disintegrates them with his Star Trek Nemesis. I love that Worf still carries around a Star Trek Nemesis phaser. Like, this is like a really good, well-made phaser. I'm gonna hold on to it.
It probably keeps it like as upgraded as one can with that. He's like, this was the pinnacle of the design.
And there's a bit of a vague Jadzia reference here because we learned like with Jadzia that he would write poetry whenever she was like doing some like big accomplishment, like when she was doing the big scientific exploration that shrunk the runabout in one little ship, one small ship, whatever.
This is the story of a little ship or something like that.
Yeah,
that made a little trip.
Kira and O'Brien and Cisco, they're like they're trying to give Worf shit. They're like, oh, like read us some of your poetry and stuff. And then like Nog kind of like covers for he like distracts them. He's like, oh no, like, look at this over here. And they're like, is Nog trying to cover for Worf? I love that scene. But yeah, like Worf is a poet and his ex-girlfriend Deanna Troi also like I guess like his therapist like says like she like helped him with, he says like he's at least been thinking about some of these things like he learned through her.
I thought that was like in its way that's a huge compliment and like carries some real weight. Here's the guy who's
real poetic.
He's most known for being a warrior and a fighter, and here he's like, I've been thinking about your gift of empathy often these years, and
I've counted all the days we've been apart, like the waves like coming in and out of the beach. And then Riker's reaction. That was like this cast just has such amazing chemistry.
Yeah.
Just like Riker, like just you put Jonathan Frakes and Michael Dorn next to each other and just like they can do some really funny stuff. It's just it's really just a joy to watch them.
Yeah, the Geek Filter mentioned it. I think I'd seen Boat Wreck do it earlier. Also, is this a rescue mission or a continuation of the torture? He is ready for the Worf reunion to be done.
Can I just say that Patrick Stewart looks so fit for his age? My goodness, like
you're talking about the clone body of Patrick, or not clone body, but original.
That's
I guess
the original body. That's like
we see the dead Picard body preserved on the Shrike. So one theory that I had been kind of like playing around with in my head was like, what if they're actually going to face off against like Locutus, and it'll be like Picard versus Locutus, and they're actually like the Borg are going to like resurrect his original body as like the new Locutus, and like that'll be like the final boss of the show, like the scary face that Vatic was talking to. What if that is like Locutus? Like somehow he exists in like the collective or something. Now he wants like his body back to like, take over. Like he's gonna have like the new Borg collective. It'll be the Borg, the next generation, basically. Right. But no, I guess I'm totally wrong because they blow up the Shrike, so they destroy this body, right? Like it's gone.
Yeah, unless they pulled another. Episode 1 where they beamed it off the ship.
They might have. It would seem weird to just blow it up.
They
a
could
little
have
bit.
beamed it onto their shuttle. We never see the shuttle, which I guess is fitting because it was cloaked. That's why the Titan didn't use the cloaking device
Right,
last week. They
yeah,
gave
which
them
explains
on
that.
the shuttle. I kind of wanted
Yeah,
them to
that
be in the
makes sense.
Lost Arena. I think that would have been cooler than
I
being
know.
in a
So
shuttle.
somewhere
But
around on the Titan right now, there's a naked Picard corpse. Just
No, he's wearing like a
he's got like a
Rocked up.
little underwear garment on.
Oh, okay. I take it back.
But
A fully clothed Picard corpse.
yeah, they don't know exactly what happened to him, but the Vatic extracted his parietal lobe that had been infected with Irumodic syndrome for something. So that's still part, like the Irumodic that might not be Irumodic based on what Data said last week is going to be important.
So they basically
for
took
sure.
out this part from this body, and now they're going to do something with it, which weirdly Jack, yeah, it's such an interesting mystery this season. I've been like, like I think what do you guys think? Have they protracted the mystery out too much? For me, I don't think so. I think it's working
they have.
well, but you have
This episode was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back on that
for
with
you.
me. They teased it so hard in last week's cliffhanger that I do at this point. This is the first time that I can say this for season 3 of Picard, but yeah, as of right now, I do feel like I've been strung along a bit too much with the Jack stuff.
Didn't bother me. I think I was there. There was basically so much stuff to enjoy in this episode. I do think I think you can make a fair case that structurally, yeah, if they're going to introduce that episode, that mystery in episode 1, holding out till episode 9 to reveal, probably stretching it.
We
But
sure as hell better get it. I need to know what is behind that red door.
They have to
in
be
next
going
week's
through the door.
If they're like, if Jack's about to open the door and then Troi is like no wait, don't open it yet, and then like they go like a whole entire episode again without giving me the Jack answers, that I might not even watch the final episode.
Father, don't stress yourself over your little made up what if scenarios that aren't going to happen.
We'll find.
That's like when you have an argument with somebody in your head and you're like getting all riled up, and you're like,
I feel like my pulse going up, and I'm like no, you listen here, buddy. Like, let me tell you. Yeah.
I've done it. Believe me, I've done it.
But I guess we also get like the introduction of Troi and Raffi, so that was fun. Raffi, Deanna, strange days, huh? You're telling me.
That's one of those lines that struck me the same way the other one struck you, Father. I'm like, this is a little too flippant and modern. Like, I'm going to say,
I like that one.
Joss Whedon dialogue-y. I say modern, but that dialogue's been in the pop culture for 20 years now. But anyway, it's
TV from the late 90s is no longer modern, and that makes me sad. Like, just happened, right?
It did just happen.
But also, it's like one of those things, far from a deal killer for me. Just like, I would have changed it, but whatever.
Well, let's change settings back to the Titan and talk about the brothers at war with one another, Data and Lore. Sydney takes PB and J. Are you familiar with that term, Dave?
Yes.
PB and J.
Picard, Beverly, and Crusher.
And Jack.
Jack. Sorry. Yeah.
So Sydney takes PB and J down to Data because they need he's the only one who can like hack Vadic's command codes. And we get that funny change with Geordi.
So much.
The prove you're not a changeling thing. And it's like, yeah, you don't know jack shit about wine, you pedestrian dumbass. You told me that shot through Picard was no good when I saw you 6 years ago.
I
also
love
like
scene.
that everyone hates
Picard wine. My headcanon is that it was good for generations and generations, and like Robert was actually like really good at making the wine until like he burnt up, and then John Luke was like, well fuck, I gotta make the wine now, and it just goes completely downhill. It just like sucks after that.
No, his wine is good.
You can't be good at everything, Dave. It's okay for him to suck at something.
Geordi's taste is pedestrian. No, so let me tell you what I like though. Is this is the scene, like when Sydney's like, oh, we need this kind of asynchronous AI matrix to do all the calculations. Yeah. I love that scene because Picard has that look like, well, and then the music starts. When Kirk gets the plan for the prefix code and James Horner's music starts going like dun 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 dun, like, and you're like, oh shit, it's on, and that. They kind of start with that music, and you're kind of starting to see, I feel like, Picard take back classic Picard some energy here. And so I like that this is also a bit of a throwback to the kind of stodgier Picard of the Next Generation. It's almost like he's finding that old captain in him again, or that, the action captain he needs to be. So yes, even I know it's just something as small as like him being a little bit harsh towards Geordi, but I thought that fit because it felt like old Picard
Yeah, yeah.
before he was more Patrick Stewarty.
Old Picard didn't tolerate bullshit. He was he could be stern when he needed to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Unapologetically stern.
The
was,
mindscape thing that we get with Data and Lore, I guess like the whole the transfer of memories that it seems like Lore is doing it against Data's will at first. So I guess it was all like Data's master plan to take control by it, basically allowing Lore to turn into Data by stealing all of his Data's memories.
It's also brilliant because the whole episode there's like different examples of like surrendering in a sense, or like surrender, and I know it's a little on the nose with the title being surrender, but and this is of course the biggest surrender I think here is
that's interesting though. I hadn't particularly thought about that. Good point.
Data surrendering to Lore. But yeah, it's to me this was like such a really cool way of like, if you're gonna do it and you do it like this, to me it's like, okay, you could do it, because it answers a lot of it like beautifully answers a lot of questions. It also fulfills like a thing that both Data desired, something that Noonien Soong desired for both of them. Like, that's what he kind of wanted.
Noonien would have been happy to see this. I think.
To see this, like he wanted to see them
point.
like become friends and share their experiences and help each other grow. And so even though it's not quite the way
that kind of explains why Alton Soong, it seemed like a bit of a half-baked idea to be like, I really wanted to be immortal and have like an immortal synthetic body, but then I said no, I should just die, and for some reason put Data and B4 and Lore and Lol and myself all into one body of an old man and see what happens. It doesn't make like a ton of sense, but if he was doing it for like his father's legacy, because like he like Data and Lore basically like my brothers, and this is what Dad would have wanted for them. It's like, okay, I kind of get it. That kind of can make sense.
It's also the best. I will say that after seeing this, like, it's very clear to me that like Brent Spiner wasn't quite, I mean, he's this dream Data, right? Like, so he wasn't, and then he's also this like, other Data. This is like he's so perfectly Data, like, especially when he comes, you could hear his weakness, like earlier, like when he's handing over the different things and stuff like that. And, but then when he comes back, when he's reconstituted after Spot, after Spot affects Lore, he's so powerful, and the way he's like, you miscalculated my ability, like just the whole that whole Data vibe just came back in such a great way. The way that Brent Spiner performed.
It's a great point.
Yeah, it's like how in the comic book world, how the writer Grant Morrison talked about how he really wanted in his Superman comics, he really wanted the artist Frank Quietly to be able to draw Superman with like this like calm confidence, where like he's just kind of like chill and relax. I mean, like, why wouldn't he be? He's like most powerful being on the planet. Like he's just like so confident and strong and powerful. He can just always be a little calm and chill and kind of relaxed.
There's also Data has that specific thing where he's really never vengeful, maybe except when he went that one time. But I loved when Lore said, asked, tell me why you're giving me these things. And he says, because you've had nothing. Well, I have had everything. I was like, that's Data's insight too. It's the maybe and a hint of sort of who he's going to become, the sort of a wiser, but also, as we will find, kind of a more smartass and version of himself. I really enjoyed the amalgamated Data.
Aaron,
go ahead.
Aaron also says it continues the theme of Trek turning enemies into allies.
For sure, and the more I think about that one, the more I like it. You can. It's not that this is an episode that has some fairly traditional payback. Vatic gets effed up, probably destroyed. But it's also in that broader thing. Yes, there's that is the mark of Starfleet at its best.
And another reason that I can, as someone who is against the Data resurrection, but find it forgivable in the big picture. Another reason why I do find it easy to forgive is the fact that Data was always intended, to try to live the full human experience. That was his journey. And, part of that is death. And that's why I think it was important that he did get his death. But they do bring up a good point to be like, well, he never did get to experience old age. So he basically got to experience death before old age. And now that he is old, it's like, oh, this is, something new for him. I guess, yeah, that is part of the human experience.
He's just doing it out of order, which is in a different.
That's kind of a Data thing too. It's like, like when he tries to make himself look old and all good things, he just has like that ridiculous, like that huge, like silver streak in his hair. It's like, it's like Data's like trying to do all the human-y things, but he's, he's still going to remind you that, oh, he's just a machine trying to be human, not quite human, but he's doing the best he can. He's getting there. So,
and now he's something else, like something brand new. I love that scene with him and Geordi that follows up on this, where he's able to use contractions. He understands humor, and what's nice about that is that
at the end of the episode.
Oh yeah. We'll wait for that then.
I will say this. I like sometimes when there's a line that sort of works as a meta line, also feels completely like something that they would say. When Data says, I've tasted death, but this is new. I feel like that is like kind of like that's what this show's Picard season 3 has been. A lot of death and sadness, and now they're moving to something new. It's also it's the big reveals, it's the finale. I think it works as almost as a description of where the show is.
That's true. And yeah, that is what I wanted the show to be. I've always said from, the beginning of the season, I want this to be a show about like let the TNG stuff end and set the stage for something new to begin. Yeah. Set the stage for the next generation after the next generation. Speaking of that, let's talk about Jack and his confrontation with Vatic on the bridge. So he goes up there to like buy them a little bit more time with like Data and Lore. I like this plan. It was another cool subversion. We think he's up there with the thermal detonator, right? I want to make a meme when he like pulls out that device. I think it's one of the plasma charges from the second episode from Disengage. Remember when Riker's like, "Hey kid, toss me one of those plasma charges."
Totally.
I think it's that prop. But the computer, when he pulls it out, the computer says "unknown device detected," and so I want to take like a screenshot of that caption, and then under it put like a picture, the Leonardo pointing at the TV meme from the Tarantino movie, but Photoshop C-3PO's head on top of Leo and have him say like he's holding a thermal detonator.
I like it, Father. It's wheels within wheels within wheels of memes.
Yeah, maybe I'll work on that if I find time. I don't think I can get it out fast enough for it to be relevant, but we'll see what I can do. But yeah, I like the whole play. It's another Star Trek theme, I think. But yeah, he didn't defeat Vatic with aggression. He defeated her with with intelligence, but also with kind of like defense. Like he's using a force field to protect him and Seven. Not like this aggressive weapon. Not like a destructive force. And he's also using his brain, using his noggin to come up with something clever. So that's a very Star Trek-y thing to do.
And at the same time, it allowed them to have a face-to-face confrontation. I know that
a very, very juicy scene with Seven there. Like, oh, it's good that you're here. Oh, Jack, I know all about the Red Door. I know all about the voices you're hearing. So is it?
It reminds me weirdly. It worked out obviously fine, but I know that some of the earlier drafts of Wrath of Khan did try to have it where Khan and Kirk fought on like some kind of psionic landscape, and. Although I'm glad that didn't happen, there is something to be said for kind of having one of your major heroes, one of your major villains face off.
I want to read that comic. I want to read like the alternate version. They did that with the other Star franchise. They took like an early draft of Star Wars and turned it into like a comic that looked nothing like the actual movie.
And they've adapted Harlan Ellison's original script for City on the Edge.
Yeah, let's get J.K. Woodward to paint a gorgeous alternative to Wrath of Khan.
Like first draft kind of script kind of thing. Yeah, I'd be down for it.
And if the story sucks, at least it'll have some gorgeous artwork.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Vatic was I think part of why I like her so much now after these last two episodes was like it's fun to see her having fun and just like she really thought that like she was she had defeated all of them and we know when
She
the
was-
tables finally do turn on her, and the
She'd
fucking
been waiting for
solids
these
moment.
kind of moments. Yeah, she does well in verbal confrontations. She's really almost never thrown off her game.
I love this scene right here where Data kind of says, Admiral Picard's like, Data, we're, and he's like, say no more, and he just does his Data thing and instantly takes over the
and
ship.
he had like
and
the
goes on
lore,
announcement.
the lore smartassness, but yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's
greetings,
true.
U.S.S. Titan. This is your friendly positronic pissed off security system back online. Unwanted guest and monologuing protoplasms. I am initiating an immediate shift change. Like, yeah, the
good.
monologuing protoplasms is that was a good one. Yeah, that's Data. That's a very Data thing to say.
There was really a series of good final lines that Seven got to do the action
off
get
hero,
off
my bridge, yeah.
Yes,
and
that
Vatic
was
got a
so good.
great villainous final line.
Dave, you pointed out to me after we watched this, you said the female changeling, I'm sure, always wanted to say that. Now whenever I rewatch DS9, whenever she's like kind of like pissed off or like I like in her head right now she's saying fucking solids.
No doubt.
And we got her smashing up against the shrike, and
it's kind of a little bit of a visual spectacle of not only Vatic being shattered into hundreds of pieces, but then also the shrike itself. And they let 7 of 9 Shaw allows 7 or Commander Hansen, as he's insistent on calling her. She's getting a little bit more like pushing back though. Like this episode, she's like, my name is 7 of 9. So I bet he doesn't say it again. I think he's scared of her now. He's gonna give her some respect finally.
But you know what? After she said my name is 7, he called her Hansen once or twice still.
Oh, did he?
I have to go back and watch, but I think he said Commander in that scene.
That's what I thought, but
I'm almost certain because I thought that might be the end of it too. But he says like Commander Hansen, no, he's like you can't do anything when she was about to make some move.
Oh, and we were wrong. Jill and I were. I'm sorry, not Jill. Jill's never wrong. Jill's always on top of shit. Rachel and I were wrong last week when we were like, I don't think Shaw was telling anyone to blow up the turbo lift. I didn't hear that, but yeah, that actually was in last week's episode. It was one quick line. I actually didn't catch it, but I something I needed the captions on, and I only watched it one time with captions on. Yeah, so he did want to self-sacrifice, and 7 wouldn't do it.
I'm looking forward to seeing, that of course I want Shaw better live, and like I'm looking forward to seeing where things will end up.
If he dies in the finale, though, like if he gives himself up again, and this time he actually does die, like to defeat whoever the big bad is. Like we'll really feel that sacrifice. I think we'll be like,
that's
oh
true.
my god, he was my favorite character. Why do you have to kill him?
But he's already suffered quite a bit. He's certainly got the physical suffering thing he's gone through,
and mental. He's
mental. Yeah, that's
some
true.
mental torment too, having to put up with PICARD. So that was
if he thought that having a Borg officer on his ship and having Ex Locutus on was bad before, I have a feeling the season or the last 2 episodes are gonna put it into overdrive.
What if he like goes down fighting the Borg though? Not just fighting them, but defeating them.
Maybe. I want him to live. He needs to captain the Titan.
Well, 7 can captain the Titan. They can do a Titan show with 7 as captain, and then that'll free up the first officer slot. So then you move Raffi over, and so then we'll have what about we'll have a couple they're in love, but they're also captain and first officer, and that'll have some fun drama.
I'd be down with that, but I think that he and 7 have I think it's more interesting to have a captain who's a bit of a prick sometimes.
I'm not trying to write off Shaw. I'm just devil's advocate. I'm a huge fan of the character.
If it happens,
who was like that in season 1 was Jean-Luc of TNG. He was a bit of a prick as well. He's just different style of prick, but he was
totally.
So
he was a prick from France or England instead of Chicago.
Is that a fucking kid on my bridge?
Pretty much.
That's the no censor version. Get that fucking kid off my bridge.
Yeah, if they made it now on Paramount Plus.
There's a scene right after Seven, orders to blow up the Shrike. They do that lovely pass with the Titan. I just love that, and it like kind of parallels the Enterprise A. It like has the same angle and everything like that. They
Well, it's
did
like the
such a good
same
job with
size
that.
as the Enterprise A. The Titan is smaller than what they were saying. We get like a good idea of the
Oh,
scale
yeah.
when we see the bridge open up. It's like, oh yeah, this is like the size of Kirk's Enterprise. It's not a. I
Right,
It
don't
is
really.
a little bigger because when you see Kirk's Enterprise in the docking ring, she fits nicely
But
in
all the
the
scales of all
yeah.
those ships and the bounty were that was all
Off.
over the place. That a lot of
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust that. I think I think you're right though. I think it might be like slightly larger than the Enterprise refit. I'm not too. I mean, this is all trivial nitpicky stuff. I just
Right,
pointed out
right.
because that's what we do. We go on the internet and talk about these things. But I think that the Titan is way too small to have a Luna class space frame inside of it. They tell us that it's in there. It's like, okay, I guess it's in there, but I
A
don't know
what?
how.
A Luna
A what,
class,
Father?
The
the
Luna
previous
class,
Titan.
yeah, this is basically like Riker's Titan, but it got turned into like a very different ship design because it doesn't look
Oh, I
anything
see.
like Riker's Titan. And they're
Right,
like, oh,
right.
they just
By
took
the
like that
way,
frame and refitted it.
I enjoyed the bridge evacuation protocol and like the whole the whole way it opened,
Hmm.
and like I just like the fact that also the Titan doesn't have that clear window.
Yeah, it doesn't have a
That
window at the front. It's just a it's all like
I had
Doug
actually
Drexler
forgot.
talked about
Yeah.
like, yeah, what if they just had like metal walls and they could turn the transparent material if they want to do that with it, but I guess that's
Yeah,
how
that
we're
makes
supposed to
sense.
assume this technology works. But yeah, it looked cool. I enjoyed that too. I don't know about like the. I normally like the hand-to-hand combat stuff, like when Raffi is sword fighting, but it felt a little out of place here when they shoved in like her. I was like, "But these dudes have guns, right? Like, why don't they? I mean, like Worf is shooting them. Why isn't Raffi shooting them? But it's still good. I guess choreography. I
Damn
would have
good. Yeah.
cut that out, but I mean it was
I like the
Yeah,
Riker
it
line
was.
though.
They were going. It's for sure a bit of
yeah.
quite the crowd
It's
pleaser of an
it's a little
episode.
silly. Yeah, it's fun but silly.
Yeah.
Wilson in the audience says, if Vatic dies this fast, what was the point of having her other than to antagonize and not reveal anything about Picard or Jack? To me, I think Vatic had a lot. I mean, I feel like she's been in 6 episodes. I feel like I was pretty satisfied. I will say that I would like to know more about these hench people of hers, and like, I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more of information about them. There is a lot. I feel like upon rewatch, there's probably a lot of stuff I missed that I'll catch and I'll be like, oh, I get it. There's like a little thing here and there.
Yeah.
But I think that she's never was meant to like reveal the thing. I think that's like, something
I'd be
always
shocked if
like.
we ever see her again. I think she's totally dead.
I think so
There
too.
is a trick that I think Terry Metalis likes to do, and at least in 12 Monkeys that works really well, is that like even though a character is dead, you might have a flashback to them anyways, or like just like a quick vignette that
That'd be
kind of
cool.
like
They could do
references them.
something
Yeah.
like
I'd
that.
be okay with
I
that.
don't.
So
I
they
feel like I
could.
know everything I need to know about. Like she was pissed off at the Federation because of what Section 31 did to her.
I think we
and-
are gonna find out one thing that I think the biggest thing about Vatic I'd like to know is that like there are little hints of like good that come out in her, just like tiny little hints, like when she was concerned about her, like going deeper into the gravity well in episode 3 or whatever it was, or whatever.
I think
and
she was concerned about herself. Like she doesn't care about her minions. She's like the only changeling that kills other changelings.
it's a good and we don't even know if they're like full changelings or what's
I
going
mean,
on.
they're all
'Cause
gonna
Riker's
die
like,
anyways, right? They all tried to like turn into the more organic type, the meat changelings. Like
meat changelings.
that's
Yeah.
kind of gross to describe, but yeah, like these changelings aren't made out of goo. They're made out of flesh and blood and muscle and organs, and that's why she dies when she goes into space. I saw people complaining about that. Like you'll get like these changelings sacrifice their immortality. They
Right.
they gave themselves these more solid
She
like
says it.
bodies.
She
As
even
much as
says it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they despise solids, and they still like, I will become more solid myself and hate myself and live in like pain and agony, and eventually like it'll kill me just to like defeat my enemy because I hate you even more. Like that's That's kind of a interesting motivation and like an approach to revenge.
So that's
I
why
think.
I'm really intrigued at who's behind this, like, because
Yeah,
I want to know. I want to know
but
what
I think
made
it's
Vadic.
unrelated. I think it's so
Right.
like I needed some people who could infiltrate Starfleet, and I found like these pissed off changeling terrorists, and
Yeah, that makes sense.
I worked with them. It's what Lore said last week. The enemy of my enemy, you know the rest.
Right.
To also add one thing in response to that comment about what did Vatic bring, she exposed Starfleet's hypocrisy in this.
Yeah.
If not hypocrisy, their complicity in the creation of her. And the radicalized changelings, and I'm really hoping that that's one of the things I really kind of feel like I need to see in the final 2 episodes is Picard, who says I didn't know about it. I need him to come to terms with that, come to talk to some Starfleet higher ups, acknowledge that there was a role in it that they had to play.
Well, let's get into
It makes
our
me sad because she kind of alludes to this, but like they can go to the Great Link and turn other changelings like them, but they can never go back to being like they were, which is kind of sad. They can never like so if the Great Link is like, no, why would we want to change into that? There's no way for them to
we got
connect
we
anymore.
don't want to like decay and die. We want to
Yeah,
stay like
exactly.
we want to be gooey for eternity.
Yeah. Stay gooey. That's a good shirt. Keep
Hashtag
it
stay
gooey.
gooey.
Stay gooey.
I need that
Was the
bumper
thing from the
sticker.
Outsiders that stay gold, me boy, right?
Yeah.
That's a blast from the past. I ain't thought of that book in a hot minute.
Stay gooey, pony boy.
Let's talk about our ending of the episode. There's like some big stuff that happens at the end. We have Worf on and Raffi on changeling cleanup duty, which is kind of symbolic of Worf. It sounds like he's been busy trying to do like Dominion War cleanup in recent years. So it's basically more what he'd been doing. It's kind of visual, like literalized. Is that a word? Like
Yeah,
literalized,
so.
like made literal.
Made
but
literal.
that's when we get the moment when Troi is walking around the Titan and she's like, "Oh my God, there is a great darkness, an all-consuming darkness." It's like, I know, Deanna, everyone complains about the show being too dark, that the Titan sets are too dark. But it's really weird. You're breaking the fourth wall when the characters start doing it too.
I thought it was interesting that they cut to Data and Picard after that scene.
Well, we had to get that Geordi scene, like the
it was really beautiful. I love this scene so much.
And Geordi even asks Data, "How do you feel?" And it's kind of like a big moment for the formerly emotionless character to be asked this question: "How do you feel?" Like Spock in Star Trek IV, when the computer stumps him, when he's being like the whiz kid answering all the questions that the computer's quizzing him with, and it says, "How do you feel?" and it stumps him. It's like, man, I don't know. Do y'all think Terry Matalas has watched the original series Star Trek movies? Because I'm not sure if I can tell.
You know what? I love this scene. And the only thing I didn't like it is that they didn't hug. Why didn't they hug? Data and Geordi. I know Data had just hugged Lore, and maybe that would have been too visually reflective.
I'm glad they didn't. That would have felt a little too like that would have been too many hugs. We had like Worf making a big like objecting to his hug. It would have. I don't. The hugs in Discovery don't bother me, but sometimes it is kind of ridiculous when there's like 12 big hug moments in like the course of an episode or something.
I would have cut some others perhaps because like Data and Geordi, like they said that they said how much they mean to each other, and then they both just turn and walk towards the camera side by side with a gap between them. I'm like, they needed to, I would have also accepted hand on the shoulder, hearty handshake or something,
I feel like they were holding one another in the scene, and I don't know, I have to kind of watch it again, but I felt like there was like an arm.
That was in the fan
like...
fiction that you were thinking of when you were watching.
Doherty. That would be the ship name, I guess. But no, that scene is particularly touching because
there's another hug after that when they go in the conference room and Data and Troi see each other for the first time and they hug. But sorry, what were you saying about that?
That's what humans do.
That Geordi scene was immensely satisfying. I just loved it. Like I love one of the things I love about Star Trek is just the displays of friendship, like the examples of friendship we see,
Yeah.
a lot in the original series, especially
Spock and
between
Kirk. Even before
yeah.
Spock and Kirk, you go to the very first episode ever shot, The Cage.
Yeah.
We had that Pike and Dr. Boyce scene.
Yeah, exactly. So friendship is such an important thing, just the different displays of it. And again, I just love that they were so like it was so touching, like especially Geordi with like I think they did a really good job this season of like fleshing out his feelings, like when he was like talking to Laura earlier and saying like, I fell apart and you're the
Oh
memory
yeah.
of you put me back together, and like, to see this moment here. And Geordi's like they were desperate, they had no other choice, they had to do this thing, but Geordi still was like, I don't know if I can lose Data, like if we do this partition, once he's gone, like this is the last Data, this is the one that was in B4, like there's not there's no more backups after this.
Yep.
And so the stakes were pretty high, and you could really
That's
like
kind of what they told us in season 1, though. They're like, "No, this is really it, y'all. Like he's really gonna be gone this time."
Well, that's a Data that stayed alive. That's the thing. Like this is one that like the last thing this Data remembers is Nemesis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
So when him and
yeah.
Laura were in like the mental mindscape thing, I kind of feel like that they should have been like CGI younger to look like how Brent Spiner looked in Nemesis. But I think like I think they probably didn't have like the budget to do that. It's not a
I
big
think
deal.
so.
That kind of would have made more sense story wise if you had like an unlimited budget. I think that would have been a good time to do some de-aging. Plus, it's like mindscape stuff, so if the CG doesn't look quite right, you got like a good excuse, But
Yeah, or you could have gone so far as even doing like a kind of rotoscoped animation combination, kind of like in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That would have been neat because they had that classical music. So if they were like glitching with the music a little, maybe I don't know, maybe
yeah,
that's
you
too much,
could
but-
have done all kinds of cool visual stuff. I saw like in his
Yeah.
computerized imagination, so it could look like anything.
I did notice
Yeah.
a kind of a neat thing where that classical music that starts with kind of becomes more muted and dulled as lore is seemingly pulling out
Absorbing,
his
right?
innards,
Yeah.
and so it feels like the auditorily feels like he's fading.
Yeah, and they do a pretty good job with how they edit that stuff.
And the
Mhm.
music is so heroic when I know we're going back to that previous scene, but the other thing about this episode, like Dave mentioned it before, is the music seems so good, and I feel like there's a lot more of Stephen Barton and Freddie Weeman. I think their original music is coming out, and like it's starting to hit me a little bit more. Like I'm not just catching, of course the references are easy to catch when they reference Jerry Goldsmith or whatever, but now I'm starting to hear a lot more of their scores, and that moment when Data comes back and all the blue lights hit, it's such a nice heroic cue that they did for that.
I'm
for
looking
that
forward to listening to the soundtrack when it comes
Yeah.
out. 4/20, right? It comes out the day that the finale drops on
Yeah,
April 20th.
I'm so excited. This is like a score that I'm really excited to play because it's been so good this
Nice.
season.
Yeah, it'll be fun to listen. And it's also a bit of like Trek greatest hits because there's a lot of Goldsmith in there. There's a lot of
I think there's
Horner
even like
in there.
Yeah. I think he's even referenced he's been
the TV
referencing a lot
shows.
of
He's
things.
got like
TV shows, yeah.
We get like the Voyager theme. We got the Star Trek 4 theme that was only in Star Trek 4, and like the da 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 da.
Yeah.
It's like they do that when it showed the bounty and the bounty.
That's right.
As far as like the ending of this episode, though, we had like the conference table powwow that I talked about, and then the decision Troi saying, I think it's time that I go meet your son. I like that she's kind of like asking permission from Beverly, and like it's like because that's they're more of like friends than her and Picard, and just like
they did a little bit of sort of patchwork on Beverly's 20-year disappearance by having them say they've been thinking about each other.
Yeah.
They're still connected. It obviously is a little bit of a patchwork, but again, I thought very well done. Great work from the actresses.
I think I would be a little bit more kind of I think I would not like that scene as much as I'm not that I wouldn't like it. I think I'd have a problem with that scene if I didn't know from an interview thing I saw where Terry Matalas says in the next episodes or the next 2 episodes we're going to get a pretty good scene between Troi, Riker, and Crusher, because I did feel like it does, like, to me, that is one of my big questions, is like, and I guess that's what we're gonna find out. It's all probably gonna be tied into Jack. Why, like, I wanted a little bit more of, like, not just like I thought of you, I thought of you, like,
Right.
and imagined what you would say. I just wanted, but it wasn't the right time. You know, realistically, one has to factor in that. First, Frontier Day is
Hours
just
away
a
from
few hours away.
destruction.
Yeah, exactly. There's not going to really be time to have those conversations. So yeah, I guess
Right.
that's true.
Yeah, you could make a decent argument. They're like, we need to somebody has to say something about it, and so we're gonna kind of acknowledge we still care for each other. Bigger convo later.
Yeah.
Well, it would be nice if in the finale, the two finale episodes, if they give Troi and Crusher a cool scene or a cool moment together. I'd like that.
Give give that girl a sundae. She needs some chocolate.
But yeah, we end with what else is going on at the ending? So Frontier Day hours away. So that's
Yep.
probably going to start in the next episode. The Shrike is destroyed. They have the data from it, so it sounds like whenever it's convenient for the characters to figure something out, they'll be like, "Oh, look at this thing we learned from the Shrike data we got." And
Potentially we have Picard's body with us.
yeah, maybe they beamed over the body that might turn into the final boss of the show if my theory is right. But the voices in Jack's head, we know it's something ancient and weak and not his own. So it's something.
Yeah.
It's something.
Locutus.
I think it. Yeah, maybe Locutus was like this ancient entity that the Borg Queen tried to assimilate Picard for, and who knows? Who knows?
In those Vampire Chronicles, when Akasha is trying to resurrect Enkyo, her husband, maybe the Borg Queen's plan all along was to.
I like
to
how you're
resurrect this
saying you're
figure.
talking about the Vampire Chronicles, and you're like, like you're just like assuming that I've watched that. Like,
and I'm like just dropping Akasha and Enkyo like nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't know none of these
anyway.
people from Adam, but
but I guess what I mean to say is, like, there's a lot of hints that, like, Jack was meant to be the Borg Queens, perhaps, if that's who he, I don't know. I don't know. I have a lot of
maybe they want him as like the host body for something. Maybe
yeah.
Locutus. What if maybe Locutus was like installed into Picard's brain when he was assimilated by the Borg? And they thought that is what was giving him aromatic syndrome, but no, it was just like it was Locutus in there, and so the Shrike removed that part of his brain to get Locutus, and now they stole Picard's corpse from Daystrom Station to rescue Locutus, and now their goal is to install Locutus into Jack.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I'm picturing the comedic version of that where somebody's like, I thought you had the Locutus files.
Why? What I want to know though is, why is Jack's aromatic syndrome? If the aromatic syndrome in Picard was Locutus, then why does Jack have aromatic syndrome? But we'll find out.
Yeah.
I'm
or
sure
does
we're
he?
gonna find out.
We don't.
Or does
Data
he?
said
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah, it's inconclusive.
Data said Picard's
Yeah.
diagnosis might be incorrect, so maybe
Right.
Jack's is as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case.
These are all questions that we hope will be answered next week, but they might be pushed off to another week.
But if they aren't, Fathery's going to have words for them.
Conniption. He's going to have conniption on this show.
But yeah, I'm sure we'll get answers. I'm sure we'll see like some big battle, some big ship action. They've been saving the budget for some big spectacle shit, and the Enterprise D will roll out a Hangar 12 of not Daystrom State, of the Fleet Museum. I still think that's going to happen. So yeah, that's what and then everyone who's like, the show is so dark on the Titan, like when they go back to like the beige Enterprise, it'll be like, oh, it's like
like somebody turned the lights on. It's nice.
Yeah.
I can read the newspaper
Titan,
in here.
I think the Titan has a cooler ship interior than the Enterprise D, but that's just me.
Oh,
I don't really like that ship.
And also they've had like lots more time to kind of like evolve aesthetics and detail, and they have huge budget. But that said, I will be happy to see Enterprise D if it shows, as it probably will.
Well, in 2 weeks it'll all be over, so enjoy it.
I can't believe it.
Enjoy
I don't
the ride.
want the game to end, but it's been such a good game so far.
and there's still plenty more Star Trek. Personally, like, I'm hyped for Strange New Worlds. I'm excited to get back to the 23rd century in a couple months, and then Lower Decks and Prodigy, two of my favorite Star Trek shows of all time, coming up at the end of the year. So I'm set. The future looks good to me.
It sure does. And
Blue
we got a nice
skies,
little 8-week gap there between shows, which is gonna be nice.
That's how this will end. I think they're all gonna be hanging out on the Enterprise D, and then like it'll play Blue Skies, because that was like the first episode of Picard. It was like Blue Skies, and the Enterprise D. It was like Picard's dream.
Or maybe they'll play some poker.
But yeah, maybe they'll play poker. So. Speaking of that, though, we do have some Gorn eggs to go over.
That's
those are the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections I found in the episode that I thought were worth mentioning. There actually wasn't much in this episode. Like I would only bring up Ractigino latte, because I feel like everyone knows Ractigino. They say that all the time, right? But like, like Troi does mention Ractigino lattes, and then that's pretty much the only Gorn egg other than the stuff in like Data's dream, which is all kind of like shown to the audience. It's like, look, here's Sherlock Holmes's Deerstalker hat, which I know has like the exact same hat.
Yeah.
Not the exact same, but the same model. Like
the same model, yeah.
We bought it from like the same place that the Next Generation bought theirs from, and in the 80s, right?
That's right.
Do you have the pipe?
I don't have that pipe.
No.
I do have one of those kinds of pipes, but I couldn't find it because I was also obsessed with Sherlock Holmes independently. No, actually, because of Star Trek, probably. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because there's a lot of Sherlock Holmes references throughout Star Trek, so I probably got turned on to Sherlock Holmes somehow through Star Trek. Well, but definitely by the time Data did it, yeah.
Yeah, and Data does give Lore the pipe. And
real quick aside on the Sherlock Holmes. Brent Spiner had always dreamt of playing Sherlock Holmes. We found out on the Ready Room, so I didn't know that about him. And the other cool thing was Gene Roddenberry told Brent Spiner, no matter how long Star Trek lasts, whether it's like a couple seasons or like for 7 seasons or whatever, my goal for Data is that he always keeps coming closer and closer to being human, but he never quite reaches it. And so I thought that was interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah, cool. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, with the he's always trying but never quite there.
Yeah.
We also have the TNG era tricorder, the Tasha Yar hologram that we saw a couple times in the show, but originally I guess was in Measure of a Man.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same. It's cool that I don't know if they rebuilt the prop or if they used the same. If someone had that prop,
they probably just 3D printed it and painted it.
Oh yeah, good point.
But yeah, it was the same design, and the poker cards were the same as the All Good Things poker cards. The last time we saw these, but yeah, they brought that back. So good attention to detail there, and of course,
there's
Spot the cat. Which, if you're like an animal lover, then I guess this moment probably hit hard for you. But that was it on Gorn eggs. I mean, there was like a shuttlecraft Emerson, because Terry Metalis would rather name shuttlecrafts after something from his 12 Monkeys show, and not like I don't know, like Star Trek characters or like real life scientists or explorers or something like they normally do with shuttlecrafts. But
Savick was the last
that's true. He gave us Savick,
and Emerson's a writer.
I'm a little peeved with Terry and the Picard season 3 team, because I feel like there's so many references to 12 Monkeys, and it's like, would it kill y'all to like reference something I actually give a shit about, like Prodigy or Lower Decks or Strange New World? Like, any of these shows, like, you just kind of ignored.
Well, there's been like a ton of references to stuff. It's just you're talking about like shows, Easter egg type references, but that's
also I think he's
only referencing the legacy shows. He's not really doing anything that ties into the other.
This is a legacy celebration. Picard is a legacy get together. I mean, we can be honest about that.
I do wish there was like a California class.
No. I'm not going to accept that, because Star Trek Prodigy did so much to tie into Picard. Mm-hmm. They had the Tal Shiar disruptors from season 1, like all of that shit. Like, Prodigy like really went out of its way to make sure like they didn't step on Picard's toes or anything. It's like they could have at least like acknowledged that, like that them just on some simple level. Maybe they will in these last 2 episodes. I'm not holding my breath.
Everyone wants to see a live action.
That bugs me.
Everyone wants to see a live action California class, for example, or a Vancouver class. Fine, like the California class too handsome. Well, let's get a Vancouver in there.
I would have loved it. I would have loved as Parliament. The Vancouver is a Parliament.
Oh, Parliament.
Class,
thank
right?
you. Yeah.
But I would have loved a Parliament class at the Fleet Museum. Yeah, it's kind of a shame we didn't get that. I felt like that was a huge missed opportunity. That was my favorite episode, but it could have been even greater. But enough about what I have to say about Star Trek Picard. Y'all just listen to me yap for an hour and a half. We want to hear what our audience thinks, so please reply to my tweets, comment on YouTube. You can email. You can talk to us in the Tex-Trek Discord or on the Facebook page. Links to all of that in the description wherever you're watching or listening. But we asked some people last week what do they think of season 3, episode 7, Dominion. Dave, did we get any subspace transmissions on that episode?
Yeah, I've just got a few here, and just as a reminder, of course, this was the episode where Picard lured Vatic into a trap, and when they thought they had her safely contained, he and Beverly did consider possibly executing her. So that was kind of the heart of the episode. So first up, we've got a tweet from Lelanor, who says, I found it dark and deeply moving. The music was out of this world, and I loved seeing Gates McFadden do a darker version of our beloved Beverly. LeVar Burton made me cry, but seeing Space Mom and Space Dad lose their compass together will be a core memory for me, I think. Joel Vallis notes, I loved the sneakers-like calling out of how far the changelings had traced their subspace communications. I have not seen the movie Sneakers.
Great movie.
He had a GIF in there, but there was a visual that showed that he had, I think, a GIF that showed the thing from it. And I know it's all spy type stuff, and
that makes me want to watch Sneakers now. That's funny.
Yeah, it's a
good movie.
I've heard it's a pretty fun outing. So what was it? Robert Redford and somebody?
Yeah. It's who else is in it? It's like a bunch of stars, but
I've never seen it either. I saw it came on TV one day, and I watched like the first 3 minutes of it, and then I turned it off for some reason.
That
was a long ass time ago. That was like in the probably like mid 90s.
Because your lifelong hatred of Robert Redford, I understand.
I love Robert Redford. He's great.
The last thing I've got here.
Poitier's in it too. I forgot about that.
Oh, that's probably what Father he hated.
No.
We'll watch that for our next watch along. It's vaguely.
Oh, but I'm glad you said that. Hey, what are we watching? Y'all figure it out in the comments while Dave reads.
Data's Day.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Data's Day.
So just lastly, I'm gonna one post here from Quark's Bar. Who asked, are we thinking that's the changeling from Homefront, DS9 episode, who taunted Cisco and Chief O'Brien for a couple minutes, and who ended up eventually getting tortured at the Daystrom station? Any possibilities there? That was one of the other changelings?
One of the 100?
I think that's one of the 9 that Vatic. I think that the changelings that we've seen, the major changelings so far, so the one that like... the ones that can actually change into other beings, like into other things instead of wearing masks. So that there's the one, the transporter chief. There's the guy that Worf and Rafi caught. There's Vadic. So that's 3. Oh, and 2 Vox. So we've seen 4, I think, of the 9 changelings that.
There's been more than that because there were some that they've killed.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, the ones Jack also killed for that, so that's 8. So that's it. Maybe we've seen all 9 of the.
And then Jack killed 4 of them.
Yep. So yeah, that's 8 now. So there's just one more.
And then Worf and Raffi killed 1.
I counted that one.
Okay. I don't know, but there could be more. Like they've spread that ability,
right?
To others,
which she could also. Yeah, she said she could also make others like it. So yeah.
So we'll never know how many there actually are.
But that is all I've got from Subspace.
Well, we'll be back next week to discuss the first part of the 2-part finale, season 3, episode 9, Vox. Vox is like, people say Vox when they're talking about like if you're like recording music, that's more like whoever's singing like the lyrics, like that's you call that channel the Vox. I don't really know what
Vox
why
just literally means voice. It means voice. That's what, and so like you've
like Latin or something. Is that a Latin word?
It's Latin. So you probably
Populi.
heard like Vox Populi, which means the people's voice. Yeah. So yeah.
So okay, man, let's get the scary voice.
Yep.
I guess this is that episode, and then the actual finale, episode 10, that's gonna be called The Last Generation. So that's ominous. I saw our friend Dr. Patrick said on Twitter. He says, "I think people are freaking out about this episode title. I think it just means last as in the previous generation, not the actual end."
Yeah.
And then Terry replied to that and was like, "No, it means the actual end." Freak out. But yeah, we'll see it all within 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, we'll be discussing the end of Star Trek Picard and the TNG saga.
Hey y'all, thanks for having me on. This was so much fun to talk about this episode
Yeah,
with
that's
you.
super good.
And also, there's no stream on Trek Central for Father and I with Dom or Jack
Sunday
this weekend or Nick.
yeah, we're taking off for Easter.
For Easter, and then also tomorrow, Father, you're not around tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow I am driving across
so we're not having
Texas
our task stream.
and Louisiana into Mississippi. But if there is a animated series stream, I can participate from my truck. I think I can at least listen.
Really?
I can probably like talk and I can talk and drive at the same time.
We'll hold off a week because I think it's good to give a little rest to everyone.
I wanted something to do. I'm gonna be bored driving for 11 hours.
I'll just call you. We'll just talk.
That's fine. We can do that too, I guess. Well, speaking of that, though, I do need to go pack and get to bed because I have a early road trip in the morning. But until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek and follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.